do that, but Commissioner Tidmore,
Here.
Commissioner Devane,
Here.
Commissioner Barry. Did you say here?
Rebecca.
Yes.
Commissioner Barry, are you here?
Yes.
Perfect. Commissioner Young,
Here.
Commissioner Flores,
Present.
perfect. And then I am here. And it looks like we don't have Commissioner Niket. So yep, there you go.
So I'm going to start out with kind of a little brief on why I asked for this special meeting for everyone, just so everybody's on up to speed. So in regards to 555 Monmouth, we discussed in, I believe, the later part of 2019. Is that correct, Fred?
Yeah, it was something like that.
Yeah, the commission was concerned because of the nature of the property that it was ripe for problems such as unapproved alterations. So we, as a commission, asked Fred to address the owners, which I understand he reached out to them both in writing and perhaps phone calls. Around February 20th of this year, I noticed some work going on the property. Sorry about that. I had something on my screen. And our council liaison helped get the city manager involved. It was a weekend and they issued a stop work order. Sometime later that month, I also asked Fred to prepare some sort of report for when we did start talking about it, about what was done on the property. Just before the February 24th meeting of the HPC, I did talk to Fred on the phone and asked him if, if we'd heard, I'm sorry, no, that was the April 21st meeting. I asked that if we'd heard anything on the property, and he had indicated he'd been in touch with the owners and they'd had some personal things where they were out of town and whatnot. And but he would work on getting them to get an application in front of us. On May 5th, I noticed work began on the property again, unbeknownst to anyone that they were resuming work. So they were violating the stop work order. I asked Fred to, hey, basically I just notified him there's work going on there. So he went and visited the property and we spoke afterwards, and he indicated that he was comfortable letting them continue with what they were doing. I expressed my opinion why it was better to stop it. At that point, I thought that the work was going to be stopped. It wasn't. Fred talked to him again, I think, that day, but allowed the work to continue. So at the end of the day, I asked for the special meeting to be called. And the next day, Fred and I had another discussion on the phone, which I guess would best be described as my candid opinion about what I thought about the decision to allow someone that had violated the stop work order to continue work. I felt at that point that the entire commission needed to be making their opinion known, so we don't run into, how should I say, daylight in between the staff position and the commission position. I have a feeling after I called the meeting and after that discussion the next day, I think that we're probably closer aligned than we were maybe the day before. And at this point, I'm going to let Fred start his staff report and let us know what's going on with the property.
Yeah, perfect. So basically what's going on the site is it's just exactly like Curtis described. I went out there. So essentially what happened was, I mean, they we definitely did talk with them originally about the idea of going through historic preservation. We gave them when that property was sold, details about being in the district and all of that sort of stuff. We made it clear to them. And I do think I had a subsequent conversation with them that any exterior improvements needed to go through the Historic Preservation Commission. Having said all of that, they went ahead and started work. They started adding siding to the exterior of the building. We told them, they also did other improvements as well. We told them that, you know, that is just
Alterations, Fred, not improvements.
alterations, exactly. To the building, we told them that those were not appropriate, that they needed Historic Preservation Commission approval. Jeff Kennedy and myself went out and visited with them on the site. And at that time, we specifically said, hey, you know what, one of the things that's most, that you've done that is most apparent and gonna be most difficult to sort of reconcile with the historic character of this property is the siding, because the siding is a shiplap siding, it's wood, and what they were putting on was just a very sort of generic hardy plank. They just covered it over the siding on the house. When they started back up work on the property, I went out there and I talked to the folks and they said, hey, we're just removing the siding. At the time, I did feel that that was appropriate because I knew that there was no siding on the back of the house. I knew that there was, I also looked at the house and I saw, I should step back. So there's, okay, I realized there was no siding on the back of the house. Let me share my screen and we can sort of look at some of the pictures here. Let me just see if I can. Hopefully, site photos. Can you folks see my site photos?
Yes.
So you can see this is what
Yeah.
the property looked like. This was in our historic designation, and you can see, hopefully you can see my hand or my arrow right here. You can see that there was T111 in the upper gable. There's T111 on this rear addition. This part of the house is really the original part of the house. This was a more recent addition on the back of the house. This part is sided by the shiplap siding, all of that sort of stuff. This back here is the T111, its addition, all of that sort of stuff. Part of the reason why they originally started this project was because this T111 on the back of this building was leaking very, very badly, especially this southern elevation back here. So that's part of why they started it. Now, right now, I'll just show you some historic pictures. You can see this is another historic picture. You'll note that in the writing of the about the property, there's a number of things that it notes about in the designation writings. One is that the windows have already all been changed. Now, you will note that some of these window arrangements that got changed are not original to the building. Some, which they've tried to do more recently, are in violation of what we would consider to be typical, desirable historic preservation alterations. Now, I'll just note this one right here, this window, because this right here, when you go out and look at the site right now, they identified, and we were talking to them about this T111, and we said, hey, if you wanted to truly bring, we're talking about all of this stuff in the context of the Historic Preservation Commission application. We said, hey, if you wanted to propose removing this T111 siding, You could absolutely do that. So that was, but it was in the context of a historic preservation application. Now you'll note now that on the building right now, and this is part of the reason why, I mean, they still have a lot of work to do on this building. Right now, this, I'll show you this picture. This window is, and I'm sorry, this would be great if I could rotate this. I'm on a different computer than I'm normally on. So anyways, I wonder how to do that. Let's see.
So is that the original siding underneath that T111 that you were talking about then?
Exactly. This is the original siding, and you can see this is where that air conditioner unit was at.
Mm-hmm.
This is a new window, but it's just fit into where that aluminum horizontal slider was. All of these,
Updated the window. It's, yeah, no real change.
well, they like these windows here are not updated. This window is a new window,
Right.
updated from, and I'll show you what it, you can see that was just an aluminum slider. These were, you know, they're very similar to what's there right now. So it's sort of made me think ultimately it's the same. Those are the same windows. Now, so having said all of that, yeah, we went out to the site. We saw them taking off the siding, and they said, "Hey, we're just planning on taking off the siding." At the time, realizing that there was a hole in the side of the building, and that there was no siding on the back of the house, we felt like, okay, you can take off the siding. Still, I made it clear everything that you've done to this point, because there are still historic changes to the building. And I'll just note a couple of those. Those still have to go through historic preservation approval. Now, one of the changes is you will note how there's these detailed sort of header things above the doors and above the windows. They're kind of distinctive, right? You don't typically see trim like that on a building. Well, those are gone now. You can see that they took off that trim, and that is a historic alteration. Also, you will.
Do you know if they saved that, Fred, or if it got thrown out?
I have no idea. Nope, I didn't talk to them about that. Another
Pile
historical.
in the backyard in one of your.
They cleaned all that up on the 7th or 8th of this month, and
Awesome.
assuming it went to the dump.
So this too is a historic alteration. This used to be a window. That window is now gone, and they did install this window as well. That is a historic alteration. So we made it clear, like, hey, you've still got work to do on this property. Regardless, even if you take off this siding, you still have to go through Historic Preservation Commission approval, because you already, there already has been alterations been made to this building. Don't think that by removing the siding that you're going to somehow avoid Historic Preservation Commission approval. So that's where I left it. We did at that time write them a nice detailed email that described that and said, hey, guess what? You are, you run the risk of potentially getting a $500 a day fine if you do any of this work. And we also pulled in our code enforcement officer, who went out and put a nice clear stop work order on the door. This is what it looks like. It says specifically, if you do work, you run the risk of a fine of $500 a day. Also, if you remove this placard, you run the risk of having a fine. So that is on the door of the property right now. We anticipate that that this is going to get addressed. I mean, so that's where we're at with this.
Do any commissioners have any comments or questions?
Well, I'm wondering why it took so long to come to us. Like, why did Fred go and tell them not to do anything? They need to go through us. And then go back after they started and say, hey, but you need to go through HPC. But hey, and now here we are. Like, why did this take so long? This is kind of what, was a concern previously, as far as when we were writing the code about this commission having no teeth. Hey, don't do that. Hey, don't do that. Hey, don't do that. And they did it anyway.
I think I can kind of elaborate on that comment and partially answer it, Jennifer. When the stop of work order was issued on February 20th, they stopped. And we all thought it was coming before us, and Fred was in touch with them, and they gave some valid excuses why they hadn't done anything yet. But where I had the big issue was when, like you said, they've been told stop, stop, stop. And then they just went ahead with the work, violating the work order. That should have been, the boom should have come down literally that minute.
Yeah, we all have excuses for all kinds of things. From February is when the fine should start. If Fred told them to stop in February, and I get that there are legalities and that the tag doesn't say till May 6th, then that's going to be it. But they knew from the city, February, that they should stop, and they continued.
Could I ask a question? Isn't this house the other building that last month's property people that were buying another house? Wasn't this house part of moving this house over? I thought it was
No, that's the one 2 doors down from Stonehenge.
No, this is many blocks away, several blocks at least.
Okay, all right.
Is this a rental, or do the owners live in the house? And who's doing the work? Is it contracted out, or is it?
That's another issue that I brought up with Fred, that I've asked him about some kind of behind the scenes. I don't know if you want to address what you found out there, Fred.
Yeah, we're looking into whether or not they're contractors or not. Basically, right now, we're looking into whether or not they're contractors. The contractor database is very hard to search.
My concern on that point was, I'm not even sure that the people that are working on the property are allowed to work on the property, even if we lifted the stop work order. That was something I brought up with Fred in the last 2 or 3 days. And I know that he's looking into that, but it appears to be an investment property for the owners.
Oh. So are we meeting to decide whether we want to fine them $500 a day from the 6th of May? Is that why we're here?
I don't think that that's a decision that we make. I think we're here because there was a lot going on, and the only commissioner in the know was me. And this is something that the whole commission should know what's going on, and should, I think everybody should be expressing right now what they see going right and what they see going wrong with this whole process.
Well, when you called in February, the rest of us should have been made aware. Like, we're now in May. And
at the February 24th meeting, I started to bring it up, and Fred asked that we didn't discuss it because there was an upcoming, there was going to be an application forthcoming from the owners. And in hindsight, I regret following that advice. I think that we could have talked about it and not run afoul of any problems with a subsequent application. I think we could have spoken in general terms of enforcement at that point. I think going forward, if we have this happen again, that's what we should do. We shouldn't discuss in detail the alterations that have been made, because that might hamper our ability to fairly judge an application that comes across. But I think we can certainly discuss the process of enforcement at that point. And I kind of blame myself for not pushing harder on that.
Can we not?
Well, I have notes on my February meeting, and it says that just what you were just saying, that it was for sale at a low price, and Fred dropped off a letter telling them what they had to do with the HPC, and because work had been seen going on, and that the city did a verbal stop work order is what I wrote down.
They did a written stop work order, but it was nothing like the one that's posted now. It was a fairly simple stop work. There was no there can be I don't even think they were notified of the possible fines on the stop work order. Is that correct, Fred?
Right, but they were told to stop.
I agree. And that's why I kind of went ballistic last week when they violated that stop work order. That's when I thought, oh, the brakes need to be put on. Everybody needs to come together, and we need to be all on the same page, or at least expressing what page we want to be on.
So yeah, there was no fines on that last one. So I mean, that's one thing, but I mean, sort of my reasoning, and I'll just be honest with you, I know that you as a commission would not want to approve something with the siding that they had put on, right? And so if they were taking off the siding that had gotten put on, I viewed that as a step in the right direction. It was a step backwards rather than a step towards completion of the project. Now, Curtis felt like that was moving closer to completion of the project, but I think when you look at the state of the building, with the fact that there's a hole in the wall, and with the fact that it exposed plywood where a window was, that actually.
That window was taken out after I spoke with you that day.
Which window are we talking about? The one right under the?
One with I guess it looks like OSB on the covering it. That was actually taken off after they did, and you told me all they're doing is taking the siding off, and then they proceeded to take the window. They had put a smaller window in place there. Here's why I had issues with Fred's decision to allow them to continue. When someone's been told stop work, okay, and they violate that order, they're not necessarily someone that you should be trusting to do what they say they're going to do that particular day.
Right. Well, they certainly have shown that they're not going to stop work, because, you know, there was an informal one several months ago, and there's been a formal one on the 6th.
And we still don't have an application for anything.
Right. So, you know.
So why haven't we brought in our attorney to write a letter to them?
Well, who does the fining?
The code enforcement officer will be the one leading the fining. And I'll just show you, Curtis. This was a picture of it. I'm sorry, this is on my phone. You can see that's a picture of it with the siding, with that second window gone. So they didn't remove that window that day. I mean,
I remember that window being in there when I first stopped by there. They probably removed it sometime after my first notification to you.
right. Well, I mean, there's no doubt about it, but that has the siding on it.
Right.
I mean,
And this
the wrap
is
and
part of the
everything.
problem, Fred, of why you can't allow people to violate a stop work order before. I mean, we should have been, I mean, we were all sitting back not discussing the property because we said there would be, we we're told there's going to be an application forthcoming. But this is the reason why there shouldn't be a stop work order. We can't even agree what was done that day. I mean,
If you want, I've got pictures from an earlier date too of what the building looked like. Like I say, they're all on my phone. I'm more than willing to have those next time we talk about this.
and I asked for you to develop a report back in late February. And the
Right,
fact
I'm willing to tell you everything that's been done to the building. The air conditioner units done. I mean,
is there a report from the late February time period?
no, but I do have pictures from the late February time period, and it's exactly the same. The window on the side elevation is gone. The trim is gone. The T111 on the side of the building is gone. The windows are largely the same.
Here's what we could have avoided with a report then. I asked you to go out to the property and do a detailed survey. At the time, up until just during the last week, as Jennifer pointed out, there was a large pile of debris from the work that they'd done. A report could have detailed if those trim pieces that are distinctive around the doors and windows were in that pile. Okay, a report is not pictures. A report can include pictures. We don't know. I mean, we don't know anything about that trim as far as the composition of the material. Was it cedar? Was it pine? Was it spruce? Was it still on site in the debris pile? We could have instructed them at that point, make sure you don't throw any of the debris away. I mean, this whole thing has not been handled well by all of us. I should have forced the discussion to some degree on the 24th. There should have been a report. There should have been a detailed list of what had been done and what materials were still on site in the debris pile. We don't have that, and I told you on the morning of the 6th, I said they're going to clear that debris away right away. And you know what they did the afternoon of the 6th? They took the debris away that day.
Okay, well, let's take what we have right now. We have a stop work order and the people have ignored that, okay? And let's go from there, because
I agree. I just want assurances that the city will not allow them to violate a stop work order again and just be allowed to continue.
well, they have violated it.
Well-
They violated the 6th, the one that's posted up on the door on the 6th. You said that they've taken the debris away.
No, that was posted after all this that I'm talking about.
Okay,
And you can clear debris and not violate a stop work order.
well, okay, all right. So, but basically what we have is people that have ignored us, and we have to maybe let's decide what we're going to do now. And you're doing good, Kurt. I'm not saying.
Oh, no, I'm not taking any. I think right now we all need to look at the problem. Where did this go wrong? And I think that there's multiple points that we can improve on. This is not just about this particular property. This is about going forward. We need to have a protocol in place separate from the code. We need to have a protocol. Like, how soon do you have an application before you start some serious enforcement action?
Well, okay, so what? 2 weeks?
Well, you can't get an application in 2 weeks because of the
How long
legal
can you-
notifications. What do you suggest, Fred?
Right now, okay, we could, number one, we could all decide on what you're talking about right now. Is it a month, 6 weeks?
Fred, can you give us an idea?
What?
I mean,
Fred,
I honestly don't know if you guys want to do, I mean, ultimately we like to not have these situations happen.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
Then
I
we
mean,
need to have enforcement when you say stop, honey.
I
Like,
know,
I'm
but
sorry, that was totally
again,
split.
Jennifer, they took off citing that you guys never would have approved, right? And so the thing is,
They all
that
took
is
it
not a
outside
step.
of a historical building without approval.
Here's the other thing, Fred, is we still at this point don't even know that the people that were removing siding
Right, right,
are authorized to do work on properties.
right,
They could have damaged it too.
right.
I mean, they could have easily damaged the historic features, removing it.
Well, let's move forward and get something out of this meeting right now, okay?
I agree.
Okay, so can we say to you, Fred, there's a stop work order, they violated it, they're now gonna be fined $500 a day for the rest of their life or whatever, you know what I'm talking about?
I mean,
Because these people don't sound like they're taking any consideration at all about us.
I think what she's asking is, let's put a hypothetical to it. What if you still haven't gotten anything from them in 30 days? What happens?
so I'm sorry, Kurt, you kind of cut
Let's
out.
put a hypothetical situation in this
Scenario.
property. What if in the next 30 days you don't hear from anything from them? You don't get any paperwork, nothing. What do you do in 30 days?
Sue has put 2 dates for submittals on her on her letter that she sent to them. So we will be checking in after those 2 dates, I imagine, and then we'll proceed with enforcement actions.
What are the 2 days?
What are the dates?
It's essentially 30 days before your guys' next meeting, so we can actually run notice on them.
Well, what if they continue to do exactly what they've been doing?
Well, then we're gonna,
We don't have
then,
any way
I
to
mean,
stop
that's in our code enforcement officer's hands at that point. I mean, so yeah, that's,
Okay, so the only thing that we can do officially as a commission at this point is we could ask the city council to direct staff to do something. I don't know if it's reached that point, but it could very well reach that point.
Or could we ask the city council to ask code enforcement to enforce the
Well,
fine?
that's a real vague term. They're enforcing right now. They just haven't levied any fines.
Well, to levy the fines then.
Yeah.
I mean, is that a doable thing? Or not?
I think
I
we could,
think it is. I think we could recommend that the city council imposes fines for having violated a stop work order. It's already clear cut that they did. We can recommend that they fine them.
And
the only thing that I would caution against doing that is the first stop work order. I think we honestly, I think as a city, the staff believed what they were hearing from the owners, that they were gonna, get together an application. And so that first stop work order wasn't really done properly. Does that kind of fit, Fred?
well, I mean, we did it quickly because you'll remember that it was on a Saturday. So
Right, but we never followed up with a real stop work
we
order.
never had Sue then go out and say specifically the same sort of thing that she put on the house.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And so they had no notice from the city that they could be fined if they violated the stop work order. And there was no notice on the first stop work order that they couldn't even remove it from the door. So I'd caution everybody against saying, let's start recommending fines immediately, because the real stop work order, as far as, hey, there's actual consequences behind violating the stop work order, just got placed on their door on the 6th of this month.
well, that's what I'm talking about. That's what we should be doing, is looking at the 6th. That's when we should be asking the city council to have code enforcement, because that's the date. Right?
Well, there is code enforcement. A fine isn't,
Well, okay, what,
I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
yeah, a fine is something that the city probably tries to avoid
Sure,
because honestly, no city likes to just fine their constituents into oblivion. And I'm not recommending that, but I think that I think that we should recommend that if these people don't respond in a timely fashion to code enforcement, that they start levying monetary fines against these people. Does that sound reasonable, Fred?
Yeah, I mean, we completely envision doing that. Yep, you bet.
should
And
we make a motion for that?
I think we should.
Okay. Should I do it?
You can.
Make a motion that we, help me with the wording, Kurt.
Okay, I would recommend, I would make a motion that the commission ask the council to direct staff to impose monetary fines on the owner if they do not
Fine.
come before the commission with a plan by the date specified. Does that sound like, that sounds like it fits within what we were talking about, doesn't it, Fred?
Yes, it does.
Who determines the date specified?
Well, I was asking Fred just a minute ago, what dates are they?
Well, you said Sue had 2 dates. One was 30 days. Was it 30 days from the 6th?
Let
30
me
days before our next meeting.
see if I can find the letter real quick.
All right.
The dates were May 19th for the June 16th meeting and June 23rd for the July 21st meeting.
Okay, so what's the language in there that she uses other than the dates?
Your completed application to the Historic Preservation Commission must be submitted to Fred Evander by May 19th, 2021 for review during the June 16th, 2021 HPC meeting, or submitted June 23rd, 2021 for review during the July 21st, 2021 HPC meeting.
So it appears what they've done is they've given them till June 23rd is what I'm hearing. Is that what you're hearing?
That's right.
Okay, so I think the motion that I would suggest would be the commission ask the city council to direct staff to impose monetary fines on the owner of 555 Monmouth if they do not submit an application by June 23rd.
Or if they continue working on the property.
Yes. Did you get that all down, Fred?
Yep, and so essentially it's ask council to impose fines on owner if do not come before.
Ask council to direct staff, because you guys are the ones that actually.
Right, ask council to direct staff to impose fines on owner if the owner does not come before the commission with a plan by June 23rd, or if they continue work on the property.
Submit a plan by June 23rd, because they won't actually come to us June 23rd, correct?
Correct. That would be for the July 21st meeting.
Yeah.
Right. Right,
It's not come before us. It's submit a
submit a plan.
plan to historic preservation.
Couldn't we can't talk about the May 19th date?
No,
Well,
because the letter
they
is pretty much
gave
given
them all the
them.
way till June 23rd.
Yeah,
The code enforcement gave them all the way till June 23rd.
Yeah.
So we can't do anything prior to that.
right. I mean, I don't expect staff to say, oops, we meant to give you less time. I think we should back up our code enforcement officer with what she's already
You're
put
right.
out there.
Good, yeah, you're right. Okay, so Fred, since, you know, you're doing the recording and everything too, this probably makes you do double duty right now for the meeting because Kieran isn't here, or is that make it harder?
No, I mean, all I'm doing is running this and just making sure that nobody's out here with comments. So,
Okay. So is that the motion? Can I second it?
Can you read the proposed motion back, Fred?
ask council to direct staff to impose fines on owner if they do not submit a plan by June 23rd, or if they continue work on the property.
Submit a plan to the Historic Preservation Commission.
Exactly.
All right. Okay. And so can I,
You can make the motion.
Move it.
okay, so I'll make that motion.
And do I have a second?
Okay.
Second.
Jennifer seconds. All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
John says aye.
Did you raise your hand though, John?
I raised my hand.
Okay.
He said aye.
Okay.
Raise it higher.
Okay. So if anybody sees any work going on that property, make sure to get a hold of Fred. Post haste.
Or how about Sue? Officer,
I was just going to ask, is this something where we should really be having Sue's number to call her when we see something going on?
Yeah, I can forward that to you.
That'd be good to have.
That's code enforcement? Is that,
yeah, Sue Albee.
what is it? Last name?
Sue-
Albee.
Sue-
ALBEE.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And Fred, I would still try to contact the owners to find out if that debris actually went to the dump, or we can retrieve some of the window and door trim. Even if we could just get a piece, we'd actually know what they took down.
Okay.
And I assume you'll be looking into that issue on whether the people doing the work are actually licensed or not.
Yep, we can do that too.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay. Any comments before we close the meeting, Fred? Okay. Are we still going to have our regular meeting?
I thought it was canceled. Like
I think
thought-
it's canceled. Karen is out this week, so we wouldn't be able to get out a packet anyways.
Okay.
Could I bring something up?
Yes, go ahead.
Last week on the front page of the Itemizer Observer was a big article about the, Women's Club building. I don't know if all of you saw that, and
They're looking for volunteers, right?
You're
no,
looking for money.
$20,000 to help fix because they've had to lose a lot of money because of COVID, and They only have 7 members. I mean, it's a big front page article. John, I remember you mentioned that building quite a long time ago as a place that we should be looking at. And basically this article was saying we need people to help us fix things and we need people to give money. And I was thinking we should be doing something about it. Or is it real political and we're not touching it because they've been around so long? I don't know.
I've actually talked about, there used to be another organization. There should be a kind of a nonprofit to support historic preservation. We can't raise money as a commission.
No, I know. But I mean, I mean, this is a big thing and I'm looking at that and well, this woman says there's only 7 members in the whole organization now. And it's been around, I don't know. John, how long has it been around? You know more about that part, I think, than I do.
I don't know, other than I went through the building when they did, they were looking at getting it for the museum instead of the one we ended up getting. So I don't know if this was 2 or 3 years ago. We did a quick tour there and it's a pretty unique building, the bow in the floor and things like that from when they moved it or something. And I don't remember the woman's name, but I think she said it's been 130 or 40 years. I mean, I think it was like an 1890s, perhaps, kind of building.
According to the article, it was a church
kind of guessing.
Moved there.
Right.
It sounds like they have a membership problem more than a.
Well, yeah, but the building evidently is falling apart because they haven't had any money to be able to.
Well, if you have an organization that only has 7 members, at some point you might want to ask the hard questions like, do we want to keep this building?
Well, okay, but we as the Historic Preservation Commission maybe ought to do something. I'm not talking about giving them money or necessarily or anything, but.
Well, unfortunately, what they need is they need something like what we have with the Friends of the Library. They need to have the Friends of the Women's Center. And I don't see that really happening. I don't.
Well, okay, but it's just the building sounds like it's not in very good shape. And if we're just standing around watching it kind of, because I understand they don't have any members and I don't know why that is or anything, but it's still a very nice building.
It is. I just don't know that there's any substantial thing that we can do.
I think
we have a list of grants that people can apply for.
Well, remember that woman that was, when was it last year that came from Salem to talk about all those kinds of things? I mean, at minimum, maybe we could give them that information.
Well, I think Gail, Mike's wife, what's her last name, Kurt? Gail.
Oberst.
Oberst, yeah.
Yeah, she used to be the president of the committee there, and at that time they had a lot more people. But it doesn't take necessarily us. What it needs is somebody who can write grants. And if we have somebody who could they have somebody that could write grants, that would be, what they really need to do. I don't see us doing we can do anything.
Well, no, I was just thinking about, there's got to be some, I thought it was just kind of, asking for help, and here we are that,
I agree, but I think us as individuals, we can do that. But us as a collective group, I don't think we can.
Right, but I think as a group, we should have a list of resources for people in our town to go to for help in preserving history.
But is there anybody you can put them in touch with at the state level that could assist them with that?
Not particularly. No, we do have that grant that's that the lady talked about, the rehabilitation grant,
Yeah,
something like that would be a good project for that. But I mean, that's not gonna, there's a lot of needs for that building. That grant is only gonna touch a portion of them. So I mean,
well,
if
at least it would
The
give them,
grant's available every year, right?
I don't know if it's available every year or every other year, but yeah, so
It's something that can be done this year, and then
Yep.
2 years from now, they can work on something else. As long as they're continuing to do it, then the property is maintained and they're trying to fix it, and we're not going to lose it.
Yep, and that's one thing where I mean, there's way too much stuff going on at the city right now, but that's definitely something we just found out we got the grant. I mean, officially, I just learned the requirements of it, and so we're trying to develop a program and get out promotional material, and some of those targeted buildings that we know are problems are people that we want to specifically target with the information about the grant. So this that building is absolutely one that we're going to send information to and just
Oh.
say, hey, this grant is available. We're planning on expanding it. Other communities have used it for entirely one project. Like St. Helens, Oregon uses it only for one project a year. We'll take that 12,000 or 10,000 bucks and apply it only to one project. So based on that, we're going to expand our grant amount so it's not $1,000 or $2,000. It could be up to $5,000 just to hopefully get some more bang from the project. So yeah, that
Well,
information
see-
is going to go out soon at a certain point.
this article lays out, they need a new bathroom, they need the walls repaired. She's talking about over $20,000 right now, to get this in some kind of shape, So,
I think that the grants that we have wouldn't cover those items, would they, Fred?
I could potentially do a wall. I mean, it would need to be exterior though. So, I mean, I saw the same article. I jumped to
Oh,
the same
okay,
conclusion.
good.
I knew that the money was there. It's something that we want to do. It's just, like I say, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on at the city right now.
But the thing is, this would be really good PR too, if we could help them. For us, as an organization that's willing to, step in, not that we have any money. I'm not talking about money or anything like that, but that, we care about what's happening too, because,
Right. So, I mean, I mean, there is requirements associated with all of the work.
oh, I'm
So,
sure, yeah.
so I mean, it needs to be consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. It needs to be done by a contractor. We need a bid and all of this sort of stuff. They need to put it in a preservation agreement for 5 years. So there are things that, I mean, there is a bit of legwork. I would like if this program was more throwing money at projects but it's not. I mean, there's a fair amount of work that has to be done for any applicant. So I think that, I mean, while it is money, there are strings attached to the money. There is a notice period too that requires 3 months of comment period, which is very, very long. So it's, like I say, it's money, but with strings attached. We want to reach out to people. That's something that we definitely want to do. Just we put it on the website, but I mean, I wanted to do targeted mailings to people too, who we know have structures that would benefit.
Yeah.
I just haven't had a chance to do that yet.
Somebody talking?
There's some background noise in City Hall, I think. This is off that topic, but since we're not going to have a regular meeting, there was something I wanted to discuss. I don't know if you all recall the last meeting where we had the application for demolition.
Right.
I don't know if I know how I feel, but I don't know if anybody else felt the same way. We ran out of time. I mean, we basically couldn't do anything else. And a good part of the reason was the applicant's testimony was long and really, and the thing of it is, it really didn't even have much to do with the application. And I don't know if we want to start considering a time limit on applicants presenting their case.
I don't.
Okay, anybody else have any feelings about it?
That's,
No.
it's not really an ongoing issue, is it?
Well, if we had two applications in one evening, it could run into a problem. We literally took almost a full hour just to do that.
Couldn't we
Yeah,
say then, in the case of multiple applications, I mean, make a statement on our website or something?
Or just make a statement on the meeting.
Well,
Hey, you know what? We have 2 applications this
we
evening.
have to
We need
limit
you to cut it short. Give us
Right.
a short story.
Keep to the point. And I mean, it's not that the information he presented wasn't all good and useful and everything like that, but most of it wasn't on point. And we couldn't do anything else at the meeting.
Right. It was a big, sales presentation for sure. Very professional and all that kind of stuff too, Maybe we could get that guy to help us out on some other things, because he sounded like that. He said that's what he does.
Well, I will tell you that I emailed his wife after and I was like, hey, can you give me a list of all the people that you use? Because
Uh-huh.
my front window is missing. It's gone. And so at some point when I replace that front window, I'm going to need someone who can build a window that's appropriate to my home.
Sure, right.
So she was like, absolutely. And she emailed me this wonderful list and I love it.
Well, great.
You share?
Oh, of course. Absolutely.
Great.
Okay, so it was just me.
Well, no, Kurt, that's a good idea. But like I said, then maybe we could just say, that if there's more than one applicant in our meeting, we're going to have to limit testimony to what, 45 minutes or something like that.
I think 5 to 10 would have covered everything. I mean, honestly, that presentation was at least what, 20, 30 minutes?
It was a long presentation.
And the thing of it is we saw that same presentation almost a year ago. So,
Yeah, and yeah, we can just say, yeah, just go ahead and say, if there's more than 2 people, applicants, just say.
if there's more than one application, I think at the beginning of the meeting, I'll make a point. We're going to have to stay on topic and try to keep the presentations brief.
Right.
And Curtis is going to time you, right?
Well,
You can have a big clock right there.
Big Ben.
Right.
Okay, so it was mostly me just getting restless probably, but I'll bring it up if we have more than one.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Okay. Anything else from anybody? Councilor Job, do I need to get something typed up as far as that motion, or will you take that to the council?
I think that Fred gives that to Mr. Pesmere and he puts it on our agenda. Is that right, Fred?
Curtis, if you could just type up something real quick and just send it to me and Tom, that'd be great.
Okay, can you email me a copy of the actual motion in the next day or so, and then when's the next city council meeting?
The
Next.
28th,
Tuesday?
the 25th, the 25th, May 25th.
So if you send that to me in the next day or so, I'll have it back to you by probably the same day, but as late as Monday, which will give you plenty of time.
It is the
Okay.
25th, right, Councilor Job?
Yeah, it is.
Good.
We
I
missed
appreciate
yesterday's.
everybody making time in their schedule for the meeting that I asked to be called, and I hope I don't have to do that again. I think Fred and the commission are more on the same page than maybe we were last week. Does that sound right, Fred?
I mean, I still think removing the siding was a good thing. I mean, I still think that, I don't know, that's where I'm still at. I still think that having the shiplap on is better than having that hardy plank on.
I
The hardy plank, I mean, we talked about it right after the first one, Curtis. And one of the things that we said was we know that this is a contributing structure, and work done on this structure would take it out of being a contributing structure anymore. And the fact is, like, the hardy plank was one of the things that most fundamentally changed the character of that building. And so when the hardy plank was coming off, my opinion was, shoot, good riddance, right? I don't want to say good riddance, but I mean,
I know what you're saying. I think you're getting lost in the details. I think the overall picture is when somebody's given a stop work order, they stop.
right. I talked to Jeff about that today too. And he said typically that when even there's been no building permit issued for this building, this is sort of the thing that happens. We don't require building permits for windows, for replacement windows, or siding. So it's always these projects that we have the most problems with, right? He said that if it was a stop work order for a building permit and somebody went backwards on that to take off work that was inappropriately done, that the contracting board would not consider that a violation of the stop work because it's going backwards instead of going forwards. And that was basically my opinion with this. In the future, I mean, I'll definitely do it different. But I mean,
Bingo. That's what I was looking for.
but I mean, still, I think absolutely the removal of that hardy plank on that building was a step toward restoring the historic character of
And I agree with that statement too. So we're in agreement on it being the hardy plank off is good, but when somebody's this is different than a construction permit. This is historic preservation. So the commission needs to be involved before any stop work orders lifted, is what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
Okay. Everybody good? Enjoy what we have left of this very beautiful day.